Samantha, send us that. Well, you got some? Okay. Okay. And you have the agenda before you. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented? I have a motion from Kitty Fouché, Commissioner Fouché, to adopt the agenda as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mayor Pro Tem Blake. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Savannah, you want to take us through this?
Sure. So is my mic on? Okay. My goal for today is for us just to have a conversation, start talking about the budget, talk about some broad priorities, and I'm going to use I'm going to refer back to the retreat that we had in October to help us frame some of that discussion. And then also hoping to get through a discussion today about the Buncombe County living wage and a proposed cost of living adjustment for salaries. So we can get started. I guess where I want to start is by talking about some of the board's broad priorities for the budget. The top three that you identified in October, we talked about opportunities for revenue, but I'm not going to talk about that too much today. Public Works came up at the top of your list in October. And that includes getting the pedestrian bridge finished, metering, the metering project, and the ongoing development of the stormwater plan, which we're making good progress on. And then we also discussed the environment and chestnut replanting efforts, Lake Susan dredging, which is happening, which is great. And then also we discussed some public safety issues, staffing, and community engagement. My focus for this budget, I would like to see the Texas Road Bridge get done. I think that that's a big priority for us. It would be good for the community. And then also just making sure that we are taking care of our staff, which I think will lead us into a discussion of living wage and cost of living. But before we get into that, yeah.
I got your first one.
Mm-hmm.
I got your last one. What was the second one?
Here.
The Texas Road Bridge.
Texas Road Bridge and for my priorities and staffing, and staff retention especially. Yeah. So with all of that being said, I just want to have a conversation with you. I want to hear from you. What are your priorities? What do you think is important as we look at this budget? I don't expect revenues to go up a whole lot. I do expect expenses to go up. So it's going to be a tight year as always, but we're going to do as much as we can. So give us your thoughts.
Savannah and I talked about the bridge earlier this week, or last week. They all run together anymore for me. But anyway, I don't know that we have enough money to do it in 1 year, but my thought was to take it out of 2 budget years, talk to Jesse and see if we could take it out of this year's budget and then maybe finish paying for it next year's budget. So that's the only plan I have, but I've been living with this bridge for how long, Kitty? Yeah, long time. So that's my priority, is to get the bridge finished, to finish the repairs up there on Texas Road that Alberto caused, and beyond that, can't think of anything else.
Let me just ask a question. As I understand it,
regarding the Texas Road Bridge, we set about 105 or 110,000 aside for that bridge. We still have that in reserve. Is that correct?
Yes. That's
So
correct.
we would need to find another 150, 145 to 150.
Potentially. I think that, I think there's a possibility that we can try to come in closer to the $200,000 mark total for the bridge. A lot of that depends on what we're willing to do, I guess. If we just want to get it in the ground and then worry about more aesthetic type things later, maybe do some fundraising around decorative additions and landscaping and things like that. But I think we could be closer to 200,000, and I'm hoping Jesse can give us some firmer numbers in the next few weeks.
Now, as I understand it, after talking with him, the 240, well, the 250 to 260 included, number one, Public Works doing the demo work.
Yes.
And number two, no aesthetics. Didn't include anything except the abutments being able to handle from an engineering standpoint extra weight for anything aesthetic. So the 250 to 260 was a stripped down price from him.
And that also depends on the width of the bridge, right? So I think that was for a 10-foot bridge. If we wanted to go with a more narrow bridge, it would be cheaper. It really is it just comes down to what
I
we want
think
to
the
do.
width can certainly come down because we're not going to be using it for automobiles. We're going to be using it for people. It's a pedestrian bridge. So it could be a great deal narrower to me. And if the folks want to put a covered bridge on it, I think if we talk to Jesse, we order a base that would carry the weight and let the aesthetic people, if we're going to raise funds for it later on, then it would be adaptable. We wouldn't have to go back and do anything but have the covered bridge built on top of it, as long as it would carry the weight.
Another potential that I could look into, and I don't know if you all would have the appetite for this at all, but it's something that I could research and bring information to you, would be to finance the actual structure of the bridge. And we could finance that. Typically towns get good interest rates, so I don't know that, I think that we could get something reasonable as far as interest on it goes. And then that might help us be able to get it done a little bit quicker as well. So if that's something that's of interest, I can at least get the information.
I think you ought to, explore that.
It did. It included, and Mason can jump in there too. It included the abutments engineered to be able to handle the aesthetics, and it included a pretty basic iron bridge. Correct? Am I?
Yeah, I mean, it really was, it really was basic. And I said at the meeting, and I'll say it here in our in earlier discussion, I think the aesthetic committee, and I'll poll because but I think particularly in the summertime, given the number of people that cross that bridge, people would prefer the wider bridge. But I'll poll our folks. I don't want to make an assumption.
There are a lot of bikes that cross that bridge, and people and bikes on a narrow bridge probably don't mix.
I would be concerned that 6 feet might not be wide enough. I'm just saying that because we're in discussion.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm 81 years old, and if I couldn't ride a bike over a 6-foot or an 8-foot wide bridge, these people don't ride abreast, do they?
Well, now, wait a second, though. I could ride one too, but I might knock a few walkers over at the same time.
I think that's a concern, that there are times of the day where it's not a lot, but there are times of the day, particularly comings and goings in the morning and afternoon, where there are a lot of kids on their way. That's all.
Sure. So I heard from the mayor that you're interested in maybe hearing about some financing. Is anyone else at least interested in the information? Okay, I'll get that for you. And maybe when I do that, I'll look into getting numbers for the wider bridge and a more narrow one as well, just so that we have firm
I do
figures.
think that you're right. The 250 to 260, he's basing on a 10 to 12 foot.
Yes.
So it would go down if we went to 8 to 10 foot, 8 or 10 foot.
Yes. So what, beyond the Texas Road Bridge, which I think is important to all of us, what other things would you all like to see in this coming budget? Or at least have us look into, explore?
Can I ask Barry a question? Barry, how close are you on the Texas Road repair there, where the creek comes through?
We're scheduled to start that April the 15th.
Thank
As
you.
soon as the drought moratoriums lifts, we're already staging rocks there. So
Okay.
we're scheduled to start, give or take weather,
Okay.
right after April the 15th.
Okay,
And
thank you.
We're going to what we're going to do is the boulder stack like was already there. And we're going to actually step back from the little knee wall, and we're going to put a little curb in because we've got so much width in that area. We're going to try to maintain an 18-foot roadway and put a concrete curb in to mitigate all that water that hits that and, hopefully keep it from failing in the future.
That'll also
Good
be
deal.
helpful for all the traffic, especially summer traffic that stops on that curve.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that the last Alberto thing that we have to do?
Yes, sir.
No.
Yes, sir. That's it. We're waiting to hear
You
back.
hesitated, and I was about to have a heart attack. There was something left we'd missed.
Yeah. Well, other than up on Swanee, the private land issue up there.
Yeah,
But this is the last one, and I'm hoping we can get it knocked out really quick.
Savannah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
We have the money that was budgeted. Right? Or
Yes,
from
ma'am.
FEMA.
The funds that we were reimbursed from earlier projects, I think we had like 24 in total, went into a fund, Fund 25. And that's what we've been repairing these projects out of. And we're waiting on some monies to come back
But
from
there's,
the Texas Extension culvert, so.
but there's 138,000 and the balance remaining of fund number 25. And there's 27,000 available in fund number 28. How much of those two balances are committed?
I'm not for sure on that. I know the Fund 25, the Fund 28, I'm not for sure what it is. Is it ARPA?
That's already committed to the.
So the Fund 25, I have to check with Shonda with North Carolina Emergency Management. When they reimburse us funding for storm projects, from what I understand, there's some restrictions on usage of the funds that she reimburses us. Like we can use it for infrastructure, but what type of infrastructure, I'm not for sure. But I'll be finding that out as they reimburse us money for these culverts.
Okay, because, when we got those funds, we had to outline each project with an amount that project was going to be.
Right.
That's why I was curious about the 138. That's a pretty big balance.
It is,
it's
yes, sir.
about
And we ended up doing a lot of
15%
the
of the
projects
total.
in-house. So we came in way under what the projects were projected to be. So I think,
It would be good to know, Savannah and Rachel, how much of that 138 is committed.
Okay. Thank you. We'll find out.
Before we leave the bridge, let me ask, if we decide to build a little park down there, is that going to take funds?
Yeah, we'll have to raise that.
Yeah.
Going to raise it, not in the budget.
I've talked with several members of the aesthetics committee. They're still committed to the work. So do that kind of thing. Once we get the bridge built.
What's next? You still waiting on us, Savannah?
Yeah.
I'd like to throw a couple possibilities out for us to think about. One, I would love to see us complete the sidewalk between here and the driveway into the columbarium. I know that Barry wants to get that culvert fixed, but if we could finish the driveway or the sidewalk up to the gate, and then maybe rough in the rest of it, that would be one thing. That we've heard that from some of our residents.
It's a good idea, Tom.
Tom, would that be, which side? It would be on this side of the gate, yeah.
Yeah, and if we do that, then it's a complete connection all the way from the lake down to downtown Black Mountain.
There is that section we've talked about before. Is it MRA property that doesn't have a sidewalk?
Going up the hill.
Right before you get to the lake. Yeah.
I think the idea is there is a sidewalk, but it's not there. You have to go.
Turn right.
Isn't that an engineering nightmare, Barry? Between Lookout and Lake going up beside. Because I was told early on there was something that we could not do, or I don't know.
Is that MRA's property and not right of way?
That's kind of what I remember from the past. If somebody wanted to have a conversation, we could have a conversation with MRA.
Oh, it would benefit MRA as much as us, with all the kids.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
Savannah, okay.
I'm
You've
with
seen
you.
the rut?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have one more thought, and I know that we've talked about it, we even talked about it on Thursday last, and that is a leaf vacuum system. We do hear about that a lot, and it would really be good to look at a way of resolving that.
I think, Barry, correct me if I'm wrong, but based on my conversation with you, that would likely involve adding a person to your staff. Is that right? If we were to try to collect leaves that way? So that's something to keep in mind, but we'll definitely explore
Okay, but
it.
I mean, we're not talking a full-time person. We're talking about a Wednesday person to aid Drew. Are we not?
We're looking at staff with so many leaves for people that take advantage of this project. We're looking at least a seasonal person that would be full-time vacuuming leaves, is what I'm saying. And then you got to look at disposal. We don't have anywhere to dispose. The individual from Black Mountain has his own little site in Swannanoa that he takes it to, and it's private property. I looked into that. So the disposal would be one of our hard parts, which we've had to face in the past. So, but I'm thinking if we was to do a program, everybody would just about take advantage of it, and which, would be good.
Yeah,
But I'm thinking somebody said it would be a seasonal person every day.
In talking to Rick Giles, Rick gets a bunch of leaves in Kentucky in front of his house every year, and he pays for them to be hauled off. And he said he says the bill is tremendous, what it costs to do that. And he said he would be willing to pay the town or pay a fee to have those leaves picked up and disposed of if that was ever an option for the town. So, just.
And we can explore some of those options of maybe offering it, with a fee. We could look at perhaps contracting it, and then also what it would cost to do it in-house and what we would need staffing wise.
I think it's a good idea, and Tom, thank you for raising it. Let's get our costs and our options. Let's explore it.
I use that service and it's not cheap. I blow all my leaves and get them into a pile. So I'm not even hiring somebody to blow the leaves. They're just in a pile and they come suck them up. And I want to say it's a few $100s to have it done.
One time?
For one time. Yeah. $300. So yeah, I don't know how you would, I know a guy who has the machine. Maybe we could talk about contracting out. That might be something that individuals in town who already do that job may be interested in. That may be the easiest way to do it, is to contract and then offer, there's essentially a fee. Somehow you pay a fee.
Yeah, I do think it's worth exploring, just based on the volume of leaves there are in town that we're dealing with every year. But I think contracting might be the way to go, but we'll explore a couple of different options and try to get the most cost-efficient way figured out.
And there, of course, is the safety factor.
Yes.
I have been campaigning for electric cars to be if possible in Montreat, and or golf carts, whichever one. But I don't know that there's a budget item that needs to be included. Would that incur any expense, or just a change in the rule?
You talking about golf carts?
Golf carts, yeah, because electric cars would be allowed anyway.
Okay, I was looking at two different types, and there are what they call slow-moving vehicles that you can get licensed for.
Right.
And I think it's up to 28 or 29 miles an hour that they can go. Then there's the golf cart type that go way less than that.
Right.
And they can certainly be allowed. I mean, that's going to take not a budget item so much as an action by the commissioners.
You're talking about just allowing them in town
Yeah.
on the streets?
And I didn't know if there would be any, well, I guess we can wait and see how many people would take advantage of that to provide them parking or charging or whatever.
Yeah, but I think that's worth looking into.
I have sort of been exploring it in different ways, and and I'm finding it's more to it than having the golf cart. You need to have some places that you can park them. You need to, have some type of liability where people should have insurance with it. There should be, other things that we followed through the state as far as what their Department of Transportation have. So I would like to continue and explore that more.
Yeah, okay. We can look into it. Okay, good. See what we would need to do.
Savannah, I talked last year about replacing the metal guardrail
Yes.
up there on Lookout. Is that a budgetable item? Is that something we can do?
We can make that happen for sure.
And that's just a pain for me. I mean, it's just aesthetics.
Yes, sir. I've gotten quotes for the metal guardrail part, and then talking with some folks in town about the part out there at Lookout. And it's going to be hard to put a wooden rail in. And I looked at some rock masons to put us like a little knee wall around through there. That's coming in pretty high, so that'll be something we'll have to definitely budget it. But the replacing the metal guardrail part on the Lookout side, that's definitely
What if you
easy.
just faced it, did a laminate, a stone laminate instead of on the concrete abutment that's there right now that the aluminum guardrail is fastened to?
We can do that, but as that guardrail goes on around up and down Assembly Drive, we're talking about removing that, and that's a good 30 or 40 feet. So making that with timbers or making it with something's going to be really tough to make that bend. And we've looked at timbers to put on the other side, and that's chump change compared to what the rock
Well,
work will be.
it's not life or death. That's just, it's something I would like to see, and, I may never see it. That's okay.
We're working on it.
Okay.
Slow going, but we're getting there.
But what other things come to mind that we would like to see in this budget we can work on, getting numbers for?
Paving and repaving?
This will be the Powell bill budget, but I'd like to make progress every year on some of our we've just got a few unpaved streets yet, but I mean, I think we ought to try to make progress every year on getting every street paved.
Okay.
Barry, where are you on fixing Virginia Road, that curve?
You just get your
Put this
Just
in my
hold on to
pocket
that.
for now.
You can just sit right here. with me.
Virginia Road is still, I think it's coming up year after next for that section. We've got to have the surveying and all done. I've got Overbrook and of course Arkansas.
Is this by priority that you're reading?
This
or-
is the Arkansas and the Overbrook is by priority. Yeah.
Overbrook's an unpaved road.
Overbrook is one of the gravel roads. And after that, we have
Quillen.
I believe. So, but yeah, Overbrook is there. And then of course, Arkansas is virtually gravel now.
What about Peace and Providence? Is that?
Peace and Providence. Providence Lane is not one of our roads. We have a water line through there, but it is a private road. And Peace Lane is already paved. So Peace and the Covenant Way up there above it, I think it's paved up to the top of the hill there just a little bit. I think they elected not to finish paving it because of construction in the future.
I was talking about that curve, taking out that bank.
Right above your house there.
Yeah.
And that's something, we could look at for a short project. If these numbers are fairly high for the longer roads, we could look at that as a short project.
Yeah,
If
it's a
you'd like.
dangerous blind curve.
Do just a short section of Virginia right there. It's something we can get some numbers on for sure.
And then are we making any progress on where the bank was falling down on Swanee?
I talked to Gracie Nichols about that because I haven't heard anything from people in that neighborhood in a while. And Gracie was going to poll the neighbors and see if that's something that they're still concerned about. And Barry and I have talked about putting barriers up, like you have on the interstate, the concrete barriers. Barry said he could even paint them brown, and Gracie knows that. But Gracie hadn't come back to me. Gracie, if you're watching today, how about come back to us on that?
Unfortunately, in that area, Kitty, our right-of-way only goes 4 or 5 feet off the edge of the blacktop. And then it's private property with MRA, a pie-shaped area there. And then the property owners that owns the concrete driveway, theirs is above that. So, as far as where we can go with our monies is not far off the edge of the road there.
Okay, is that everybody? Anything else before we move on to talking about Buncombe County living wage? Anything that comes to mind? And really what we want to do is just make sure that we are presenting a document that is reflective of your priorities so that we are not going back to the drawing board, with a little bit less time each time. So that's good. That kind
The
of,
only thing I would say is, what did we have on our wish list from last year's budget on what do we call that?
capital improvement
Yeah,
plan.
the CIP that didn't make it.
So I
Should we
can,
revisit that?
email after this meeting. I'll email you all a copy of the CIP and try to identify some of the things that didn't make it. And when we meet next time, we can maybe take a look at those items.
Yeah, it's not going to be on the things that didn't make it aren't going to
Right.
be on the CIP.
Yeah, I can find those somewhere. No, I've got one. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so Buncombe County living wage. I guess Rachel and I are unclear if the intention, when you all decided to move everyone to Buncombe County living wage, I believe that was last year, you made that decision, was the intention to implement that living wage every single year, or was that something that you wanted to do once and then just have it move up via cost of living raises? Because the Buncombe County living wage as of January did move up $2 from $20.10 to $22.10. So it has gone up, and we just need to know as we budget, do we need to get everyone to that 2210 mark, or was that a one-time, was the intention to do that once?
The history on that, Savannah, is that probably 7 or 8 years ago, maybe even longer, the living wage that was in the minutes and so forth and in the record was to make sure that those people doing work in Montreat, not our employees necessarily, but those people doing work, were paid a living wage, which is difficult for us to control. At that time, all of our employees were making the living wage.
Except two.
No, this is years ago.
Oh, okay.
At that time, all of our employees were making the living wage. So, I'm not sure what we're talking. If we're talking living wage for our people, then, need to open the floor to the discussion.
Right, and I think right now we have, I think we have four employees that are falling outside of that
As of the
range, that
January
22, the 2210, yeah.
Well, I think as I recall the discussion, it wasn't a mandate, but that the discussion last year was, if at all possible, we would like all of our employees to be making the living wage.
I would put it in the budget and see where we go.
Okay.
Personally, I would rather.
I would support that.
I made that motion last year, and it was based on the fact that I think we had two employees that weren't at that level. And instead of just giving those two a raise, the suggestion and the motion that carried was to raise everybody by that percent. So we moved everybody up.
So that you're not dealing with the compression issue, which is the next question I was going to ask. So that leads us into our cost of living discussion. I had planned to propose a 5% cost of living increase for across the board for all of our employees. And I didn't know how you all felt about that. I do have a total on that. So annually, the increase, if we were to move everyone up by 5%, the total budget impact is almost $26,000, $25,919. So I don't know if you would like me to move that down a little bit, keep it where it is, when we're pulling our numbers together.
How would that impact the people who fall below that 2210?
So I think that it gets all but, doing the 5%, I want to say it gets all but one of them there. I can't remember. I did look at that, maybe two, but it would take care of at least some of them automatically. And then for those folks, we could either just move them up to the 2210 or just move them up to the 2210 and, not do the 5%.
So what was the budget impact that you said?
$25,919.
What was the percentage change in the living wage index? In the past year?
Did not know off the top of my head.
Just in the process, I'd like to know.
Yeah.
So, there are oftentimes two types of increases. There's a merit increase and there's a COLA increase. And COLA, in my own experience, was not all that frequent. Are we not giving merit increases in lieu of COLA?
I don't know what the history of merit increases has been in town. I do think that merit increases are trickier than cost of living increases, of course, because we have, different department heads who are going to judge the same things differently. So it's a little bit trickier to be equitable. I'm happy to go that way and try to figure out the best way to do it if you don't want a cost of living increase. And that way it can be individualized for folks, they can be 3%, 5%, 1%, 7%, however much that they need to get based on merit. I do think it's important to do something for folks just based off of, I was looking today at, housing costs, inflation. It's definitely not getting any better. The cost of a one-bedroom apartment, for instance, has gone up. I want to say I read 36% in 3 years in Buncombe County. It's just getting more expensive. Yeah. But that being said, I also know we're limited by revenue challenges. So these are difficult decisions to make.
Yeah, I just think in order to explain it to the taxpayers, I think we need to document, here's what the cost of living is done in the past several years in Western North Carolina. Because they may look at the consumer price index and see, well, it was only 3.2%
Right.
last year. Why are you giving it 5%? We need to answer that. We need to answer that question. I'm not opposed to.
No, I agree with you.
Understand what I'm saying?
I do.
It's sort of what Tom's saying. If there's a merit element in that, then we need to say that too. Okay, so that we justify wherever we end up at.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure it out because last year we raised everybody to the cost of living, which was 21 something. So you're saying that in 1 year, it went up to 2210 and that many of our employees then fell below?
I think that you all raised it to 2010. That's,
Well, I thought it was
I think
21.
that's correct. And now it's 2210. So that did push 4 folks right out.
That was a 10%.
Yeah, that's a 10%
Yeah.
increase.
And
1 year.
so one of those people is a part-time employee that falls outside of that range. One person is falling outside of it by only 69 cents, and the other folks are falling outside of it by just over $1. So the total budget impact to move everyone up there, I do not have, but I will.
Again, I think if there's been a 10% increase in the living wage, that's a lot easier for us to explain to
Yeah.
the town than when we're only getting a 5% increase, we're only getting half.
Right. I can pull that all together, and that is coming from Just Economics Western North Carolina. That information is, but I will pull that together. I agree with you. It's important for the public to know what we're facing, and I think employee retention is going to be our biggest help in the years to come. People are moving away from public service just in general, and we have a great staff in place. So I would like for us to do whatever we can to help them, but it does have to be justifiable to the taxpayer as well. So, yeah,
Not suggesting them close to
yeah,
5% as you'd like to do.
yeah.
At first reaction, we're positive to that, but we've got to explain.
Yes.
And when you're digging into that a little bit, would you just see what's in that 10% increase of the COLA in Buncombe County? Because there may be some other factors that that may not apply to us.
Sure. I will do that. What else does anyone have any thoughts about that? And we can also, it's really easy to now that we have the 5% number, it's obviously very easy to move that up and down to play with the numbers and the impact. So that should be easily done too.
Well, I think that you've recognized that we have a wonderful staff and we need to keep them. And when we have to replace somebody, that's an expense a lot bigger than a 5%.
Yes.
I also think within the town, one of the areas that the people cite is our staff. And I think as far as a sale for taxes increase, that would be the easiest one and the best one of our use.
What's our total payroll?
Total payroll is, hold on 1 second, I'll pull it up. Sorry, 1 second. So the projected total for salaries in this budget year was $700,445.
700,745.
445.
So that's about a third of our total, a little bit more than a third of our total budget.
That's correct, yes. But that's really all I have. It was just a conversation to get everyone thinking about the next couple of months. I would like to do this again more formally with an actual document for you to look at, some of these numbers included in that, and really start getting into details, hopefully at the end of April or 1st of May.
Good deal. Is that okay with commissioners? Okay. Anything else?
Do you have any big ticket items that we know are going to be on there?
I know that Barry and I have discussed, obviously, we both would like to see the bridge get done. So maybe, allocating some money towards that. There needs to be a conversation about police department salaries, potentially, and the chief is going to present some salary information to you all. But potentially raising the minimum starting salary in the police department to be able to attract some quality candidates. I know that one of our police vehicles has met the 10-year and 100,000 miles policy. So we'll probably include that in the budget proposal. Those are the real big ticket items that are coming to mind off the top of my head that we've discussed so far.
What's an update on the agreement that we had with Black Mountain? Is that still going, or?
Because of the changes that we've had in the police department over the last couple of weeks, I've put a pin in that for now. It was going to be fairly expensive, really more than I wanted to spend on it anyway. So for now, I'm kind of keeping it in my pocket as needed rather than a formal agreement to take on someone in that capacity. Yeah. But so I don't know if everyone saw my email, but we have Olivia Presley Eads starting in our police department. She has experience in Biltmore Forest. She was an officer in Black Mountain. She'll be joining us on day shift. And then I announced at our last meeting that Morgan Bocanegra is back. So that has alleviated some of the immediate staffing issues we were facing.
And when does Olivia start?
She's on maternity leave right now. I expect that she'll get started sometime in early May.
Any other questions of Santa, commissioners? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
I have a motion from Commissioner Alexander to adjourn. Do we have a second? Second from Commissioner Fouché. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes carry. We adjourned.